Okay, like this. Alright, here. Okay. Okay, inshallah. Huh? No? Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي ينشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون الله Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Surah Fatiha is requested from means
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. یہ ختم شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ ختم شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، تمہارا دوست ہے تنہا، تمہارا دوست ہے تنہا، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ ختم شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، گوارا کر نہیں سکتی حسین کی غیرت، تمہاری زوجہ کی چادر کو لوٹ لے امت، تم اس کو چھوڑ کے کوفہ، تم اس کو چھوڑ کے کوفہ، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ ختم شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، مجھے ہے یاد وہ لمحہ جو رب کی مرضی سے تم ہو کہ زندہ میری بات سننے آئے تھے، بلا رہا ہوں دوبارہ، بلا رہا ہوں دوبارہ، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ ختم شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، در بطول دوبارہ جلایا جائے گا، تمہارے دوست پہ خنجر چلایا جائے گا، نہیں ہے وقت زیادہ، نہیں ہے وقت زیادہ، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ ختم شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط نہیں اس سے بہنوں کی آرزو سمجھو، ہماری لفظوں کو زینب کی گفتگو سمجھو، بہن یہ کہتی ہے بھیا، بہن یہ کہتی ہے بھیا، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ ختم شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ ختم شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ،
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. ہائے ہائے ہائے، حسین بانٹ رہے ہیں نجات لے جاؤ، حسین بانٹ رہے ہیں نجات لے جاؤ، ہو کچھ آنسوؤں کے عوض ارے کائنات لے جاؤ، حسین بانٹ رہے ہیں نجات لے جاؤ، یہ کربلا ہے یہ معجز نما کی بستی ہے، یہ کربلا ہے یہ معجز نما کی بستی ہے، کفن میں اس کے لپے تو حیات لے جاؤ، حسین بانٹ رہے ہیں نجات لے جاؤ، کہیں گے ماتمی حلقوں سے لوگ محشر میں، کہیں گے ماتمی حلقوں سے لوگ محشر میں، ہمیں حسین کی جنت میں ساتھ لے جاؤ، ہمیں حسین کی جنت میں ساتھ لے جاؤ، بہا کے اشک یہاں ارے کائنات لے جاؤ، حسین بانٹ رہے ہیں نجات لے جاؤ، قسم حسین کی پرسے میں کم ہی لگتا ہے، قسم حسین کی پرسے میں کم ہی لگتا ہے، بلند جتنا بھی ماتم میں ہاتھ لے جاؤ، حسین بانٹ رہے ہیں نجات لے جاؤ، اور کہیں گی فاطمہ وقت ظہور مہدی سے، کہیں گی فاطمہ وقت ظہور مہدی سے، لڑائی کے لیے غازی کو ساتھ لے جاؤ، لڑائی کے لیے غازی کو ساتھ لے جاؤ، سند نجات کی نہ دے سکیں گے سوم و صلات، سند نجات کی نہ دے سکیں گے سوم و صلات، بہشت مار کے سینے پہ ہاتھ لے جاؤ، بہا کے اشک یہاں کائنات لے جاؤ، حسین بانٹ رہے ہیں نجات لے جاؤ، کچھ آنسوؤں کے عوض ارے کائنات لے جاؤ، حسین بانٹ رہے ہیں نجات لے جاؤ، صلوات علی محمد و آل محمد۔
Sayyid Bilal, my respected elders, brothers, and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Just a quick update on the announcements and how we're trying to accommodate and try to keep everyone safe. As many are aware, with this recent variant, and now there's a second variant that's actually just surfaced again from the West Coast and South America that we talked about a few weeks ago. We're taking every precaution necessary here at the center to keep everyone safe. Right? And I know there are different views and thoughts on this. Some saying, hey, there's nothing, versus those who are like, this is scary, right? And it's somewhere in between, right? And we're going to do what it takes, again, like I said, here to err on the side of caution for everyone's sake. And the last thing we want to do is close the center down. Just today, we got word a center not too far from here had to close down because one person tested positive in the community. They had to shut the entire center down, right? In these nights that are coming up, that's the last thing we want to do, is have to close down. So I'm asking for everyone's cooperation on this. This is frustrating. It's more frustrating for us because there's more work obviously involved in doing all this stuff, cleaning, sanitizing, making these announcements, both through email and standing here in front of you making these announcements. So what I'm asking again is we do have limitations in terms of how many people we can safely fit in here. Inside, it's somewhere between 80 and 100, and if we go over, we can extend into the multi-purpose room only as needed. What I will ask to maximize the space, children, if you can sit next to your family with your fathers. On the ladies' side, if the girls can sit with their mothers. Basically, you're forming bubbles that allows us to fit more people in here. And as well, if you can space out 3 feet in between each other. I know back in the corner, I see a lot of congregations, so you may want to spread out there. But again, this is only being done for your safety. And the last thing we want is for anybody to get ill. And then as well, that impacts us in having to close the center down. Masks, again, this is feedback that I'm getting. Concerned individuals that are coming, members that are coming here, are making observations that some of you are not wearing your mask over your nose. Please cover your nose because, again, we want to stop the spread. I hate having to say these things, but again, I get feedback and it makes people uncomfortable. There has been word as well from the other side of the wall during the day. There are individuals, one or two, that are not wearing their masks, and there's some concerns there. So again, we are being strict here. If you're not wearing your mask, again, we're asking you to wear your mask. For those who are uncomfortable wearing the mask, we do have the outdoor setup as well. You can stay in your car. We have the big screen on and participate in the program outdoors. Again, nothing of this is to make anyone inconvenience anyone, but these messages are necessary. These coming nights, again, there'll be volunteers at the door keeping count of who's coming in. Once we reach the limit, they will kindly ask you, as well as the parking volunteers will kindly guide you. If we reach capacity inside, then to park outside. All right, and again, I don't want to have to go through a registration process, but if we have to do that, we will. I'm trying to make it as convenient and simple for everybody to come. But again, if there is, how would I say, things are not working out, then we'll have to alter course accordingly. Okay? So again, I'm asking for everyone's cooperation and patience. This is, again, not easy for any of us, but we want to stay here at the center and keep these programs going through at least the coming week, and as well the remainder of the months of Muharram and Safar. Another announcement as well is that the Muharram Fund is open. We are asking all families to contribute at least $200 to the fund to help meet our cost. I will publish a separate email with the target cost for Muharram and Safar. Again, this year's cost will be higher than last year because we are open again. We are inviting speakers to be live here with us, so there are increased costs with that. And I'm asking for everyone, for those who can contribute more, please do. And again, if $200 is too much, again, all amounts are accepted. It's every dollar that counts to making our target. And I'll again be very clear what the targets are and how the money will be used this weekend. Assalamu alaikum.
So sorry, said 5 times, I am Ajibu, for all those who are sick, for the safety of Muslims, for the safety of our holy places, for all our safety from all the diseases, and for all those in need of du'as. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب مضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب مضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب مضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء اللهم صل على محمد آل محمد فشفاء مريزا كل أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على إمام القبلتين ونبي الحرمين وأفضل الثقلين وجد الحسن والحسين الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين والذين ذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على صاحب الدعوة النبوية والسولة الحيدرية والإسمة الفاطمية والحلم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والعبادة السجادية والمآثر الباقرية والآثار الجعفرية والعلوم الكاذمية والحجج الردوية والجود الثقفية والنقاوة النقبية والحيبة العسكرية والغيبة الإلهية. اللهم عجل فرجه وساهل مخرجه. أما بعد فقد قال الله في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فخرج منها خائفا يترقب قال ربي نجني من القوم الظالمين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the love of Fatima al-Zahra in particular, a second salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the hastening of the reappearance of the master of our time, a louder salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If one were to examine all of the different descriptions of the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada, without a doubt, one of those descriptions which proves accurate is that the movement of Imam al-Hussein was a movement to implement the Quranic vision and the Quranic principles. And in reality, it was a movement to revive the spirit of the Quran in a Muslim ummah which had lost that spirit. that what more can I say about how superficial the Quran had become than the fact that a man like Yazid had become the ruler of the Muslim Ummah, an individual who would openly oppose the tenets of the Quran and rule over those who call themselves Muslim. As Sayyid al-Shuhada said to Walid bin Utbah in Medina, that Yazid rajulun sharibul khamar wa qatilun nafs al-muhtarama wa mu'linun bil fisk, that this individual is the one who drinks alcohol, which is a clear Quranic prohibition. And this individual is one who takes the lives of innocent human beings, which is a Quranic prohibition. And this is that individual, he sins openly in front of everyone. You see, this reality shows that how removed these individuals were from the Quran. But if you want one statement which shows this reality like no other, then you look at the second sermon of Sayyid al-Shuhada on the day of Ashura. In the second sermon of the Imam on the day of Ashura, when he addresses the army of Umar bin Saad, he says, you are those individuals who, number one, abandon the Quran. And then in a second portion, he says, you have falsified the Quran. And then he recites the verse from Surah Al-Hijr. He says, Alladina ja'alul Qur'ana idina, that you are the one who made this Quran into scattered parchments and pieces. You see this verse from Surah Al-Hijr, when you look at the full context, even though Sayyid al-Shuhada recited one verse, the verse before that says, Kama anzalna alal muqtasimin, alladina ja'alul Qur'ana idina, that we had revealed to those who would divide the Quran. That who was this group that would divide and break apart the Quran? You find number one, the Mufassirun, they said that when at the time of Hajj, Rasulullah would recite the Quran, there would be a group of individuals who would divide the people, and at the outskirts of Makkah, they would say, don't listen to Rasulullah. This man is a magician, na'udu billah. This man is a sorcerer. No, this man, he makes this up from his own. But at the second level, the Mufassirun, they said that those individuals who would divide the Quran are those who would pick and choose from the Quran. What aligned with their ideology, they took it. And what didn't align with their ideology, they left it. In other words, instead of learning from the book of Allah, they would impose their own opinions on the book of Allah. And when this begins to take place in society, then it is only that individual who is true to the Quran that can bring a proper revolution. And you find that is Sayyid al-Shuhada. When the Imam says, I want to reform the Ummah of my grandfather, reform doesn't mean to bring something new. But no, reform and Islah in the Islamic sense meant to go back to the origin of the deen. That origin which was presented within the Quran. And after all, this is the one who is the walking Quran. That if the Quran was embodied in human form, it would be Sayyid al-Shuhada. I remember one writer would say that in reality there is no translation of the Quran. That when you translate the Quran, although you're able to put certain concepts into another language, you are not able to translate the spirit of the Quran. That's why a translation is called a translation. It's not called the Quran. That when it comes to the text of the Quran, you don't touch it unless you're in wudu. The same isn't said about a translation. But he said if there is a translation of the Quran, then it's in the realm of reality. That if there is ever an existent, that when they think it's Quran, when they speak it's Quran, when they act it's Quran, then only they can be a true translation of the Quran. And none held that reality besides Ahlul Bayt, as in on the day of Ghadir, When Rasulullah, he says, Inni tarikun fikum muttaqalain, I leave behind two weighty things, the book of Allah and my progeny. It's stated within the tradition of Imam as-Sadiq that the fingers of Rasulullah were like this. You see, some of the hadith are very explicit. That, for example, when Rasulullah says, Ana wa kafilul yatim fil jannah ka hatain, the hadith say that Rasulullah used this first finger and the second finger. But on the day of Ghadir, when he said Quran and Ahlul Bayt, he uses these two fingers from each hand. That what is the difference? They said, Oh Imam as-Sadiq, why did your grandfather do this? Imam as-Sadiq says that when you look at these two fingers, one is bigger than the other. But my grandfather Rasulullah used those two fingers that were equal in size next to each other. That even when it came to the symbolism behind the Quran and Ahlul Bayt, the utmost care and precaution was taken. And in order that we build a relationship with the Quran, and we understand the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada from a Quranic perspective, the subject of analysis tonight is examining the Quranic references made by Imam al-Hussein within his journey. Because when you examine the journey of Imam al-Hussein, from Medina to Makkah, Makkah to Karbala, no, even afterwards, you find that it is replete with mentions of the Holy Quran. And after all, the ashab and the companions of Sayyid al-Shuhada are those who held on to the Quran. That you look at somebody like Burair bin Khudayr. Burair is that individual that Tabari would write that Burair was the head of the reciters of the Quran in Kufa. This same companion that when the day of Ashura comes, they see that Burair is smiling on the day of Ashura. They say, Oh Burair, why are you smiling in such a situation? Burair says, in my youth, I didn't enjoy this world. Now that I'm an old man, why would I enjoy it? But the reason I'm smiling is because I see my status in paradise before you. You see, these are those companions that on the night before Ashura, it's stated that from the tents of Sayyid al-Shuhada, the Quran would be heard like the buzzing of the bees from that tent. That there was this form of unison. And indeed tonight, we remember whom? We remember Habib ibn Madahir. You see, Habib ibn Madahir is that individual about whom Ahlul Bayt would say, Allah, Allah al-Habib, kana yakhtumul Qur'ana bil-layla wahida. That Habib is that individual that he would finish the Quran in one night. That is Habib ibn Madahir. Now, when we come to the crux of tonight's discussion, of course, in one 50-minute lecture, I can't analyze every single verse which Imam al-Hussein mentioned. Because in the speech of the Imam, he recognized that his companions had a Quranic familiarity, that he would refer towards the Quran and they would understand where that reference is coming from. But I'll examine those major references made by Sayyid al-Shuhada, and those first of those references comes when Imam al-Hussein departs from Medina. You see, after news had come that Muawiyah had passed away, that immediate command came that take allegiance from Hussein and the other prominent personalities. Imam al-Hussein, when he refuses allegiance, he is forced to leave Medina on the 28th of Rajab. And when Sayyid al-Shuhada leaves Medina, he recites that verse from the 28th chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Qasas, verse number 21. And that is that verse which said, فَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا خَائِفًا يَتَرَقَّبُ قَالَ رَبِّي نَجِّنِي مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. The verse it says, and he had left from amongst their midst in a state of fear and vigilance, and he said, Oh my Lord, guide me and save me from the oppressive people. You see, the verse that Sayyid al-Shuhada recites is the same verse that Musa had recited when he had left the land of Fir'aun to go towards Midian. Because you find that there was an allegation made against Musa that he was an unjust individual and he had killed one of the Israelites unjustly. So Musa, when he leaves, he recites this verse. Sayyid al-Shuhada, when he says this verse and he compares his situation to Nabi Musa, he is saying that I am the Musa of my time. And in the way there is a Musa within this time, there is also a Fir'aun within this time period. You see, this verse of Sayyid al-Shuhada has three elements. The first element is he leaves in a state of fear, and I'll mention what fear this is. Number two, he leaves in a state of vigilance. And number three, there was an oppressive group of individuals. When Imam al-Hussein is making this reference to Musa, he's saying all three of these, they apply to me, Sayyid al-Shuhada. You see, the Imam, when he says, number one, I leave in a state of fear, the question immediately comes up, is that why is Sayyid al-Shuhada fearful? The Imam is at the peak of tawakkul and reliance upon Allah. That doesn't make sense for the high spiritual status of the Imam to be in line with a state of fear. You see, the fear of Musa was not a fear for his own self. And this is what Amir al-Mu'mineen explains in Nahj al-Balagha. When Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahj al-Balagha describes this verse, he says, Lam yujis Musa khifatan ala nafsihi. That Musa was not afraid for himself. Innama khafa min ghalabat al-juhal wa duwal al-dalal. That the only reason that Musa was in fear is that those ignorant people will take the control of society and there would be a government of corruption. When it comes to a Nabi and an Imam, the Imam's concern isn't his own nafs and his own self, but the Imam's concern is the deen of Allah. People ask the question that when Amir al-Mu'mineen was burying the body of Rasulullah, and instead of helping in the burial of Rasulullah, individuals had gathered to take the right of Ali bin Abi Talib. Why did Amir al-Mu'mineen not fight for that right? You find the answer is that the concern of Ali was the deen of Allah. When they come to the door of Fatima Zahra, and they push that burning door upon Zahra, in between the door and the wall, the own son of Ali bin Abi Talib becomes miscarried. Why doesn't Amir al-Mu'mineen stand up? It's because he made the sacrifice for the deen of Allah. When Imam al-Hassan had to make a ceasefire with Muawiyah, and as he's standing upon his musalla and his prayer mat, they pull that prayer mat out from underneath Imam al-Hassan. They take a knife and stab Imam al-Hassan within his leg, as Mufid writes in Kitab al-Irshad. Why doesn't Imam al-Hassan have a revolt? You see, an Imam is the one whose concern was the deen of Allah. You and I allow our ego to get in the way of the path of Allah. You see, our goal within life is to manifest the divine names, to manifest those spiritual qualities. And you can only manifest those qualities when you step on your ego. If you've ever looked at a mirror, right? A mirror is able to reflect. But can you ever see the glass of the mirror on its own? You can't see the glass of that mirror because that glass of that mirror is covered by the reflection. The moment a person is able to control their nafs and ego, only at that moment you begin to find that you manifest those spiritual qualities. And oftentimes the irony is that we turn the holiest of events into our own self-game. That when it comes to the majlis of Sayyid al-Shuhada, people will say that if I wasn't here, there wouldn't be this majlis within this town. There wouldn't be this noha, there wouldn't be this matam. It's not that you are the cause behind it. The reality is, if that majlis wasn't there, you wouldn't be there. You are not doing an ahsan upon Sayyid al-Shuhada. I'll give you an example. Have you ever heard those lines of poetry, Shah Ast Hussain? Badshah Ast Hussain, Deen Ast Hussain, Deen Pana Ast Hussain, Sardad Nadad Dast Dar Dast Yazid. You see, even this poet, when he wrote this line, the first four lines mention the name of Imam Hussein. But the moment he mentions a stanza with the name of Yazid, he doesn't take the name of the Imam next to the name of Yazid. But if I ask you this line of poetry which says the king is Hussein and the ruler is Hussein, that he gave his hand but he didn't give his hand in allegiance. If I ask you the question that who wrote this line of poetry, many of you will say, especially our elders, that Mu'inuddin Chishti wrote this line. I ask you the question, did Chishti only write one line of poetry or did he have thousands of lines? He had thousands of lines. But the only one that became immortalized that you remember is the one for Sayyid al-Shuhada. Now who enlivened who? Did he depend on Sayyid al-Shuhada or is the Imam giving towards him? You see, that is the reality of the Imam. The Imam, he leaves Medina. فخرج منها خائفا يترقب قال ربي نجني من القوم الظالمين. You see, Sayyid al-Shuhada, when he recites this verse, he is saying that to the path of haqq, even if you have to leave your sanctuary, even if you have to leave that place of comfort, in the name of the deen of Allah and haqq, you make that sacrifice. So you find this is that first verse which Sayyid al-Shuhada recites. The second verse within the journey of Sayyid al-Shuhada, after he is leaving Medina, and he recites that verse of Musa when he leaves the land of Fir'aun. When he arrives in Makkah on the 3rd of Sha'ban, Sayyid al-Shuhada recites that verse which Musa recited when he had come towards Madayan. That verse which refers to Musa coming towards Madayan, it says, وَلَمَّا تَوَجَّهَ تِلْكَاءَ مَدْيَنَا قَالَ أَسَى يَهْدِي رَبِّي أَنَا سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. That Musa says that when he turned his face towards, Allah says that when Musa turned his face towards Madayan, he said, perhaps my Lord would guide me to the right path. You see, once again, Sayyid al-Shuhada refers to the incident of Musa. And there is a tradition of Rasulullah that whatever Banu Israel went through, my ummah will go through that. Sayyid al-Shuhada is saying, O Muslim ummah, you are not a group who is immune as a group. These stories in the Quran about the mistakes of the past nations, you'll make those same mistakes. And in the way there was a Musa within Banu Israel to guide Musa, the same way there will be a guide in every single time. Time and time again, Rasulullah would refer towards Banu Israel in the story of Musa. When it comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, Ya Ali, Anta minni bimanzilati Haruna min Musa. That, oh Ali, you are to me as Harun is to Musa. And I didn't plan on reciting this next incident. But sometimes when it comes to the fadail of Amir al-Mu'mineen, different incidents, they come towards your mind. It's stated that when Rasulullah was within the mosque, a beggar comes to the mosque of Rasulullah. And when that beggar comes to the mosque of Rasulullah, nobody gives towards that beggar. At that moment, as Rasulullah is looking within the mosque, you can imagine the Muslim community emphasizes giving to others. And there's a person in need and no one is giving towards him. As he's looking out, he sees that Amir al-Mu'mineen in a state of ruku lifts his finger and gives his ring away in ruku. Even here, it's stated in the works of hadith, Rasulullah makes a dua by comparing his circumstance to the circumstance of Musa. You know what the dua is? In the Quran, in Surah Taha, you find the dua of Musa that Rabbi shrah li sadri, that Allah expand my chest, give me strength. وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي وَاحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِّسَانِي يَفْقَهُوا قَوْلِي وَاجْعَل لِّي وَزِيرًا مِّنْ أَهْلِي هَارُونَ أَخِي أُشْدُدْ بِهِ أَزْرِي وَأَشْرِكْهُ فِي أَمْرِي. Then Musa says, Oh Allah, make my affair easy. Untie this knot from my tongue. Give me a wazir and a deputy from my family, my brother Harun, who will be my backbone and my supporter. You know what Rasulullah said? Rasulullah, when he sees Ali bin Abi Talib give away his ring in ruku, Rasulullah says, Rabbi shrah li sadri. ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي علي أخي أشدد به أزري وأشركه في أمري. He says that give me a supporter from my family, my brother Ali ibn Abi Talib. And in the way that Rasulullah says that the Harun of my ummah is Ali, except there's no Nabuwa after me. In the same way, if you're making this analogy, there must be a Samari in the ummah of Rasulullah. There must be a Qarun in the ummah of Rasulullah. There must be a Haman in the ummah of Rasulullah. And this is why Sayyid al-Shuhada makes the reference towards Musa. He says in this ummah, there is a man who is changing the laws and the spirit of Islam. And I am the one who is standing up at this moment. So you find the first two verses are in relation to Musa. But when you examine the other verses which Sayyid al-Shuhada recites, you find the third Quranic reference he makes is towards Nabi Yahya. You find Imam Zainul Abidin says that there was not a halting station except that my father would mention Nabi Yahya, John the Baptist. You see, the reason Sayyid al-Shuhada time and time again mentions Nabi Yahya is because there was a similarity in the circumstance. And he wanted the people of that time to understand this reality. That when Abdullah bin Umar comes to the Imam in Makkah and he says to the Imam, don't go, the Imam says that, O Aba Abdul Rahman, that this was his title, one of the signs of the lowliness of this world is that the head of Yahya was cut and it was given towards an adulteress. The Imam is making an allusion here. In the way the head of Yahya was cut in the name of the deen of Allah, I, Hussein, am the waris of Yahya. That if that means I sacrifice my head for the deen of Allah, I'll make that sacrifice. You see, the incident of Yahya, it's stated within that incident that there were those priests in that time who were changing the deen of Allah for the king because he wanted to marry a girl that was non-mahram. But the only priest who had stood up to defend the deen was Yahya. And because of this, they cut the head of Yahya and they send it to Damascus in the way the head of Sayyid al-Shuhada goes towards Damascus. But I say there's one difference between the incident of Yahya and the incident of Sayyid al-Shuhada. The sister of Yahya wasn't with him. The daughters of Yahya weren't with him. This is the sacrifice of Sayyid al-Shuhada. So you find that the first Quranic reference is the incident of Musa. The second Quranic reference is the incident of Yahya. But the third Quranic reference we find within this journey is that when Sayyid al-Shuhada arrives in Makkah, he begins to send letters to different people. And amongst the people that he sends letters towards is the people of Basra. And within that letter, he says that فَإِن تُجِيبُوا تَهْتَدُوا, that if you reply to me, you will be guided to what? Subul al-Rashad, to the path of righteousness. You find this line of Imam al-Hussein within that letter is a reference to the Quran when the Quran says, Wa ahdikum sabil al-rashad, will guide you to the right path. And this was the words of Mu'min Ali Fir'aun. So the first reference is made towards Musa. The second towards Yahya. The third is to that believer in the depths of Fir'aun who saved the life of Musa. You see, when they had gotten ready to kill Musa, Musa is within the town of Pharaoh. They are not allowing Musa to leave. But there was one individual who had concealed his belief. His name was Hiskil Momin Ali Fir'aun. He said to those people that I will reason with you. If Musa is lying, then there's no harm towards you. But if Musa is telling the truth, then you're in big trouble, using my own words. That if Musa's claim towards the existence of God is true, you're in big trouble. But if he's lying at the end of the day, nothing changes from your understanding. You see, the Quran showed Sayyid al-Shuhada when he writes to these individuals that even though you are close to the government, there needs to be somebody who supports the deen of Allah amongst their midst. That you find that in the time of Rasulullah, it was Abu Talib who would defend Rasulullah from amongst the Quraysh. You see these discussions about the Iman of Abu Talib, I don't go into those discussions. Why? Because if you have an individual who is a PhD professor, you're not going to have an argument about his high school diploma. He'll say, I am a PhD professor, you're talking about my high school diploma. To speak about the faith of Abu Talib is very low. This is the one who that before Surah Al-Fatiha was revealed, he would say, Alhamdulillah. This is that individual who recited this in the nikah of Rasulullah. You know, there's one hadith. I remember reading this hadith and the logic was just beyond my mind. That man, he says, that I was within the gathering of the leaders of Quraysh. And that individual himself wasn't a leader of Quraysh. He says in that gathering, there were only the leaders of Quraysh, and I heard Rasulullah whisper into the ear of Abu Talib, say the kalima, say the kalima, say the kalima. I say, number one, the gathering you say is only the leaders of Quraysh. You're not a leader of Quraysh. And number two, when it comes to something negative against Ahlul Bayt, you hear Rasulullah whisper into the ear, but when Rasulullah is yelling upon the day of Ghadir, Man kuntu mawla, fahada aliyun mawla, you don't hear Rasulullah. So you see the logic, it doesn't add up. Sayyid al-Shuhada. Within this verse, he refers to Mu'min Ali Fir'aun. So you find one reference to Musa, a second reference to Musa, a reference towards Yahya, a reference towards Mu'min Ali Fir'aun. Then after that, you find Sayyid al-Shuhada was seen reciting a verse on Shab Ashura. You know what that verse was? And I am not saying that these are all of the verses the Imam recited, because that's an entire Ashra on its own. The Imam was reciting, وَلَا يَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا إِنَّمَا نُمْلِي لَهُمْ خَيْرٌ لِأَنفُسِهِمْ إِنَّمَا نُمْلِي لَهُمْ لِيَزْدَادُوا إِثْمًا. That do not let those disbelievers think that us granting them respite and time within this world is good for them. The only reason we are doing that is so their sins can increase. That the sign of power doesn't show that that individual is closer towards God. And the final verse before Musibah that I'll mention is that Sayyid al-Shuhada recited a verse at the body of Ali Akbar. You know, the lines Imam al-Hussein says at the body of Ali Akbar alayhi salam are lines which are unique. The Imam, when Ali Akbar goes, the first thing he says, قد برز إليكم غلاما أشبه الناس خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا برسولك إذا اشتقنا الرسول نظرت إليه. The Imam says that I am sending you that one who resembles the Prophet of God in his speech, character, and figure. And whenever we desired to look at the Prophet, then we would look at him. You know what verse Sayyid al-Shuhada recites when Ali Akbar goes to the battlefield? He says, Inna Allah istafa Adama wa Nuhan wa ala Ibrahim wa ala Imran ala al-alameen durriyatan ba'duha min ba'd. That Allah has chosen Adam and Nuh and the progeny of Ibrahim and Ali Imran. You know, ulama have said that this is the fadail of Ali Akbar. In one way, you are chosen as a prophet. You are chosen as an imam. But there are certain individuals that they were not a prophet and an imam, but they were chosen as those figures of guidance. And they say that the fact that Sayyid al-Shuhada recites this at the body of Ali Akbar shows that Ali Akbar has a unique status from amongst the Shuhada. But tonight is the night where we remember Habib ibn Madahir. You see, half of these nights have already passed by. Starting tomorrow, we remember the Musibah of Banu Hashim. But on this night, alongside Habib ibn Madahir, it's important to mention the other ashab of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Because tomorrow the Masaib of Aun and Muhammad, the children of Sayyida Zainab, begin. You know who the ashab of Hussein were? I'll give you one example. There was a companion by the name of Sa'id ibn Jubair. And if you want to understand what lengths the companions went to for the Imam, Sa'id ibn Jubair was a man who was over 90 years old. And it's stated that when he would go and he would walk, he would tie a piece of cloth on his back because his back wouldn't be able to go straight. So you think that how can an individual like this fight with Sayyid al-Shuhada? But you know how he defends Sayyid al-Shuhada? When that time for Salat al-Dhuhr comes, he notices arrow after arrow is going towards Sayyid al-Shuhada. He says, I am a man who doesn't have strength to fight on the battlefield. But I do have the strength that as the arrows come towards Hussein, I can stand in front of Hussein and take arrow after arrow. These are the companions of Sayyid al-Shuhada. That there was that companion, Muslim bin Aqil, before Karbala. You see, if we don't mention the Masaib of Muslim, we haven't given haqq to the Masaib of Ahlul Bayt. But what is the status of Muslim? You know, Muslim is that companion. The same ziyarat you recite in the shrine of Abu Fadl Abbas, you recite in the shrine of Muslim bin Aqil. Don't compare Muslim to Hani. Don't compare Muslim to Mukhtar. Muslim is from the household of Ahlul Bayt. Muslim is the one who annihilated himself in the ishq of Ahlul Bayt. That when Muslim he leaves that mosque of Kufa upon that night, it's stated that Muslim was alone within the streets of Kufa. And as Muslim is alone in the streets of Kufa, he stops at the doorstep of a house, and a lady by the name of Tawa comes out. She says, oh man, you are a non-mahram. It's not appropriate for you to sit here. You know what Muslim says? Muslim says that I am in a town where I don't know anyone within this town. I say, oh Muslim, this was the Kufa of your uncle Ali bin Abi Talib. That how is this Kufa today, O Muslim? Muslim says, I am from the household of Aqil. That lady says, O Muslim, you are from the household of our master. I say, O Tawa, where were you when the family of Ahlul Bayt went to Kufa? When Zainab would be taken through the marketplace of Kufa. Muslim goes within the house. But you find that the son of Tawa, she reports Muslim. Tawa says, oh Muslim, stay within the house. But Muslim was a man of ghaira. He was a man of honor. He didn't want the staying place of a woman to be attacked. I say, oh Muslim, you didn't see Sham Ghariba, oh Muslim. Oh Muslim, you didn't see the tents of the women being burned from one tent to another. The daughters of Rasulullah would go, oh Muslim. You find that Muslim, as he's fighting, they capture Muslim. They take Muslim to the Dar al-Amara. When he goes there, Muslim says, can you give me water? You know, every time Muslim wants to drink from the water, the blood of Muslim falls into the water. I say, oh Muslim, you felt the pain of Abba Fadl Abbas when Abbas was by the Furat and didn't drink from that water. You find Muslim, he puts the water away. They take Muslim to the top of the castle. As the man raises his sword, Muslim looks, he says, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. You know, Sayyid al-Shuhada, when he finds out about the martyrdom of Muslim, he says, oh, my sister Zainab, call the daughter of Muslim. You know what Sayyid al-Shuhada does? When the daughter of Muslim comes, he holds the daughter of Muslim. She begins to place his hand upon the head of that daughter in the way that she was an orphan. This girl was from the house of Ahlul Bayt. She said, oh my uncle, did something happen to my father? The Imam, he said that your father has become martyred. He places his hand on the head of the daughter of Muslim. He says, oh Zainab, bring earrings. He places it on the ear of the daughter of Muslim. The narrations, they say, at that point, a 3.5-year-old girl was watching. That the moment you become yatim, somebody places their hand on your head. They place earrings on your ear. I say, oh Sakina Shami Ghariba. That when somebody comes, he places his hand. This was the sacrifice of the Ashab of Sayyid al-Shuhada. You see, as the days passed closer to Ashura, Sayyida Zainab would watch that more and more people are coming to the army of Yazid. She says, oh my brother, is there anyone coming towards us? Everyone who comes is coming to oppose us. Sayyid al-Shuhada says, there's one individual I'm waiting on, and that is Habib ibn Madahir. You see, Habib is that individual that when you go to the shrine of Sayyid al-Shuhada, may Allah grant you the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein, that when you go into the shrine of Imam al-Hussein, on the left side is the Dari of Habib. You want to know what the Fadail of Habib is? Anyone who does the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein once does the ziyarah of Habib 2 times. That once when you enter and once when you leave. It's stated that when the letter of Sayyid al-Shuhada gets to Habib ibn Madahir, Habib says, Man bil Bab, who is at the door? The man says, Ana Barid al-Hussein, I am the messenger of Hussein. Habib, at that moment, he gets up. He opens the letter. The letter said, Min al-Hussein ibn Ali al-Rajul al-Faqih, to that learned individual. It said, oh Habib, we've fallen in a time of difficulty. Oh Habib, come towards us, Ajilan, come quickly, oh Habib. Habib had worry upon his face. At that moment, the wife of Habib looks at Habib. She says, oh Habib, what has happened? Habib says that the son of Rasulullah is in difficulty. The wife says, oh Habib, what are you going to do? Habib says, I'm thinking about it. Habib only had to say that. The wife of Habib says, "Oh Habib, the son of Fatima is calling you and you're not going towards him." Habib says, "I only wanted to take your test. I am going towards my master." Habibi begins to go towards the outskirts of Kufa. As he's going towards the outskirts of Kufa, he notices that the outskirts are blocked off by the army of Ibn Ziyad. He says to his servant that go to the outskirts with my horse and I will join you at the time of night. You know, when the Habib he goes towards the servant, he hears the servant speaking towards the horse. He would say, "Oh horse, if our master Habib doesn't come, then we'll go towards Karbala." Habib says, "What a time has come on the household of Ahlul Bayt, that even the servants are having mercy upon that household." You see, Habibi begins to go towards Karbala. When he goes and he approaches the tent of the Imam, the companions of the Imam began to say, "Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar." Sayyida Zainab says, "Oh Fidda, go and find out why is everyone saying takbir, oh Fidda." Fidda, when she goes, she comes back, she says, "Oh Bibi, it's because Habib ibn Madahir has come." Sayyida Zainab says, "Oh Fizza, go and give my salam towards Habib." You know, when Fizza gives the salams of Sayyida Zainab, Habib sits on the ground of Karbala. He takes off his turban. He says that what I pray the granddaughters of Rasulullah. Habib ibn Madahir, he goes towards the battlefield. He begins to fight. As he's fighting, a time it comes, they surround Habib from all sides. Habibi falls on the plains of Karbala. You know, it's stated that when the family of Ahlul Bayt reaches Kufa, the wife of Habib finds out what has happened to Ahlul Bayt. She says that surely Hussein is the grandson of Rasulullah. They must have buried Hussein. But Habib is from Kufa. These people won't bury Habib. She says, "Oh my servant, take this one kafan and take it to the body of Habib." When that servant he reaches Karbala, he sees that one kafan wasn't enough. That the body carried on the plains of Karbala. This kafan back. He says, "Oh lady, you gave me one kafan. The bodies were 72. ألا لعنة الله للقوم الظالمين. سيعلم الذين يا منقلب ينقلبون. Ya Allah, we ask through the right of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad that wherever the followers of Ahlul Bayt are in difficulty, help them. Wherever they're sick and ailing, cure them. Ya Allah, we pray for the tawfiq to do the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada. We pray for the shafa of Janab al-Zahra on the Day of Judgment. You know, one tradition says, Imam al-Baqir narrates, that when Janab al-Zahra comes on the Day of Judgment, a call will be made, Ghuddu absarakum, that lower your eyes, the daughter of Rasulullah is coming. And it's stated at that moment, she'll say to Allah, "Oh Allah, that if these two cut arms of Abbas aren't enough for the shafa'a of this ummah, then I also have that shirt of Hussein which is covered." Ya Allah, we ask through the right of Janab al-Zahra that if there's anyone who has any hajat, any difficulty, through the right of Fatima al-Zahra, help them. And Ya Allah, we pray for the hastening of the reappearance of the master of our time, Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein.
یا حسین 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 حسین یا حسین یا حسین کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم آیا کربلا والوں پہ محرم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم کھوٹ بکتا ہوا عباس کا پرچم آیا کربلا والوں پہ سا محرم آیا کربلا جیسے جیسے میرے غازی کا علم جھکتا گیا جیسے جیسے میرے غازی کا علم جھکتا گیا پشت میں حضرت شبیر کی بھی خم آیا کربلا یہ کیسا محرم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کیسا محرم جیسے جیسے میرے غازی کا علم جھکتا گیا جیسے جیسے میرے غازی کا علم جھکتا گیا پشت میں حضرت شبیر کی بھی خم آیا کربلا والوں پہ ظالموں اس کو تو دو بوند پلا دو پانی ظالموں اس کو تو دو بوند پلا دو پانی ظالموں اس کو تو دو بوند پلا دو پانی اب لبوں پر میرے بے شیر کے ہے دم آیا کربلا والوں پہ رم آیا ایسا محرم آیا کربلا والوں پہ یہ کہ لبیک یا حسین 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 لبیک یا لبیک یا حسین لبیک لبیک یا حسین اے میرے آقا میرے مولا کرم کر دے ذرا اپنے روزے کا تو دیدار کرا دے مولا میں کہلواؤں گا زوار تیرے روزے کا بس یہ صدا دیتا ہوا جاؤں گا میں کرب بلا لبیک لبیک حسین تجھ پہ قربان میری جان میرا دل مولا تیرا روزہ ہے میرے واسطے منزل مولا اپنی چوکھٹ کے بنا دے مجھے قابل مولا حسین لبیک یا حسین لبیک لبیک یا حسین لبیک لبیک مولا تو اپنے غموں سے میرا دامن بھر دے، تجھ سے چاہے مقدر کا سکندر کر دے، عشق ہو جائے جسے تجھ سے وہ اپنا سر دے، اور بھی یہی کہتے ہوئے شام کے لشکر سے چلا لبیک لبیک یا مولا حسین لبیک لبیک یا حسین لبیک یا حسین لبیک لبیک ہم سکائے سکینہ وہ علمدار وفا جس کے ہونے سے تھا زینب کا سلامت پردہ، مشک میں پانی بھرا جب وہ سوئے خیمہ چلا، وہ بھی یہی کہتے ہوئے زین سے بے دست گرا لبیک لبیک یا مولا حسین لبیک 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 یا حسین لبیک یا حسین یا حسین ہائے اون محمد سے کہا زینب نے، میرے بچوں ہے بہت ماں کا بھروسہ تم پہ، تم میرا ناز ہو میدان میں جاؤ لڑنے، تم بھی یہی کہتے ہوئے مام پہ ہو جانا فدا لبیک لبیک یا مولا حسین لبیک لبیک یا حسین لبیک یا حسین لبیک لبیک یا حسین کھائی سینے میں سینہ ہے علی اکبر نہ رہے، تیر گردن پہ لگا تو علی اصغر نہ رہے، دل بھرے مولا حسن قاسم و مظفر نہ رہے، کہتے ہوئے بس یہ صدا ماں نے سب وار دیا لبیک لبیک یا مولا حسین لبیک لبیک یا حسین لبیک یا حسین لبیک لبیک یا حسین حسین اے کریموں کے کریم میرے سرور مولا، سب یہ ذیشان پہ آسم پہ کرم ہے تیرا، تیرے بچوں کے صدقے یہ مقدر ہے ملا، فرش ازا جب بھی بچھا فرش ازا جب بھی بچھا دل سے یہی آئی صدا لبیک لبیک یا مولا حسین لبیک لبیک یا حسین لبیک یا حسین لبیک سائے میں سیدہ کے عزادار رہیں گے، سائے میں سیدہ عزادار سب میں کے پڑھ کے، سائے میں سیدہ کے بڑھتا ہی چلا جائے گا شبیر کا ماتم، بڑھتا ہی چلا جائے گا شبیر کا ماتم، آئے جو غم شہر کے علمدار رہیں گے، سائے عزادار ہم قبر میں سو جائیں گے جب بے خبری سے، ہم قبر میں سو جائیں گے جب بے خبری سے، ماتم کے نشہروں ہمیں بیدار رہیں گے، سائے میں ہر چیز کو دنیا میں فنا ہونا ہے لیکن، ہر چیز کو دنیا میں فنا ہونا ہے لیکن، قائم غم شبیر کے آثار رہیں گے، عزادار جنت میں اگر مجلس شبیر نہ ہوگی، جنت میں اگر مجلس شبیر جو ہوگی، ہم اہل عزا خلد میں بیزار رہیں گے کہ عزادار رہیں گے سائے عزادار جب ہوگا سوانیز پہ خورشید قیامت، جب ہوگا سوانیز پہ خورشید قیامت، سائے میں سیدہ کے عزادار رہیں گے، سائے میں سیدہ کے عزادار رہیں گے، سائے میں سیدہ کے عزادار رہیں گے، سائے میں سیدہ کے عزادار رہیں گے۔ کیسے ہو مسلمان، کیسے ہو مسلمان، چراغوں کو بجھا دو، کیسے ہو مسلمان، چراغوں کو بجھا دو، کیسے ہو مسلمان، چراغوں کو بجھا ہو، کیسے ہو مسلمان، چراغوں شہزادی کونین کھلے سر ہے ردا دو، کیسے ہو مسلمان، چراغوں دو، کیسے ہو مسلمان، چراغوں ہے، کیسے ہو مسلمان، چراغوں اٹھتا ہوا خیموں سے دھواں دیکھنے والوں، اٹھتا ہوا خیموں سے دھواں دیکھنے والوں، اٹھتا ہوا خیموں سے دعا دیکھنے والوں، اسلام کے گھر میں ہے لگی آگ بجھا دو، کیسے ہو مسلمان، چراغوں کیسے ہو مسلمان، چراغوں اس دن کے لیے پالا تھا کیا بنت نبی نے، اس دن کے لیے پالا تھا کیا بنت نبی، اس دن کے لیے پالا تھا کیا بنت نبی نے، شبیر کا سر کاٹ کے نیزے پہ چڑھا دو، سے ہو مسلمان، چراغوں کیسے ہو مسلمان، چراغوں माँ देख न ले सर को कहीं बरसर नैजा, माँ देख न ले सर को कहीं बरसर नैजा, जिस पर सर असगर है जरा दूर हटा दो, कैसे हो मुसलमान चरागों बुझा दो, कैसे हो मुसलमान ये शाम का बाजार मोहम्मद की नवासी, ये शाम का बाजार मोहम्मद की नवासी, उरिया सर इस्लाम है चादर तो उड़ा दो, कैसे हो मुसलमान चरागों, ओ कैसे हो मुसलमान चरागों, शबीर के मातम की सदा गूंज रही है, शबीर के मातम की सदा गूंज रही है, उठो मेरी आवाज से आवाज मिला दो, कैसे हो मुसलमान चरागों, ओ कैसे हो मुसलमान शहजादी कानन खुले सर है रिदा दो, कैसे हो मुसलमान या हुसैन
يا حسين يا عباس يا سيدي يا عباس يا شهيد يا عباس يا مظلوم حسين شهيد كربلاء وويلا ولا آيات بدشت كربلاء وويلا لا حسين إمام مظلوم وويلا ولا حسين قاتل الأشقياء وويلا ولا عباس ألم دارم تشد وويلا ولا أكبر نوجوان تشد وويلا ولا أصغر شرخارم تشد وويلا ولا قاسم نوجوان تشد وويلا ولا حسين إمام مظلوم وويلا رسوائی و ملال و مرض سے گناہوں سے سب کو بچا لے تجھ کو 72 کا واسطہ کر مستجاب سب کی ہماری تو یہ دعا فریاد و آہ زینب مزتر کا واسطہ دنیا میں سب کو کربلا جانا نصیب ہو دنیا میں سب کو کربلا جانا نصیب ہو حجت جو تیری 14 ہے ان سب کا واسطہ صلوات سلام
السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد المرسلين. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيد النساء العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي. السلام عليك يا سلطان أبا الحسن علي بن موسى ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا مولاي صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم كن لوليك حجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وكائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك توا وتمتيه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوات. لبيك يا حسين، لبيك يا حسين، لبيك يا حسين، يا حسين.
بديش نحن البيت
يا علي.